The 1990s were a great time for the film industry. We had classics like Good Will Hunting, Rainmaker, The Game, Shawshank Redemption, and Pulp Fiction. But one thing the decade was full of was feature films based on true life events. Of course, as with most based on true events productions, there may have been a degree of poetic license with some of the projects, but with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture, here with 10 90s movies you didn't know really happened. Number 10. Heavenly Creatures. Heavenly Creatures is a captivating 1994 crime film starring Kate Winslet, Menely Linsky, and Sarah Pierce. Directed by Peter Jackson, now obviously best known for his work on the Lord of the Rings franchise, this 99-minute gem of a movie was met with high praise from critics upon its release. The Rotten Tomatoes site gives the picture a 93% score, and it has been described as a masterful film on Metacritic. The movie follows the friendship between two teenage characters, Juliet and Pauline, who have become close friends after Juliet has been transferred to a new school. The two girls become close and their relationship becomes extremely intense. After some time, their parents become concerned that the relationship between them is unhealthy and attempt to separate them. Not willing to be parted, the girls make a deadly plan. The film is a tense and atmospheric journey into the minds of two girls who become increasingly disturbed. Heavenly Creatures is said to be based on the real-life case of the 1954 murder case in Christchurch, in which two teenage girls were sentenced to 5 years for murder and ordered never to see each other again. Number 9. Ed Wood. Ed Wood is a 1994 movie starring Johnny Depp, Martin Landau, and Sarah Jessica Parker. Directed and produced by Tim Burton, the film has been described as a comedy drama. Depp himself is in the starring role, playing Ed Wood, a character who is a filmmaker. The 127-minute flick was met with a largely positive response, with good reviews and solid feedback from critics. Rotten Tomatoes holds Ed Wood at a rating of 92% with a rating average of 8 out of 10. The picture follows the story of the titular Ed, a man who dreams of conquering the film world. He wants to act, direct, and achieve his ambition of producing successful movies, though to some, he has a lack of natural talent. However, Wood does not let this hold him back, and the film highlights Wood's journey. The movie itself is actually a biopic of the true-life Ed Wood, who was born in 1924 and died in 1978. At the time of Wood's death, his career had fallen into such obscurity that his passing was not even reported in media obituaries. The man's life of highs and lows are presented beautifully in this biopic, and it's definitely a film worth checking out. Number 8. Alive. Alive is a survival drama that was released in 1993. It starred Ethan Hawke, Vincent Spano, and Josh Hamilton, and was directed by Frank Marshall, who was one of the founders of Amblin Entertainment. This 2-hour epic production told the tale of a rugby team's fight for survival after their plane crashes into the Andes Mountains. The movie opens in dramatic style, with the plane the team are flying in falling through heavy turbulence and crashing into the mountains. Those who have so far survived have to turn to desperate measures in order to get through their time in the difficult terrain and climate in which they found themselves. The film itself is actually based on the book Alive, the story of the Andes survivors, which was written by Piers Paul Reed. It was a non-fiction account of the true events that occurred on Friday the 13th of October 1972. 45 people were actually on the flight, and yet only 16 survived in sub-zero temperatures. It was a dramatic and terrifying ordeal, as one can imagine, and the film perfectly captures the events that unfolded in the mountains. Number 7. Ghosts of Mississippi. Ghosts of Mississippi is a US court drama which was released in 1996, starring Alec Baldwin, Whoopi Goldberg, and James Woods. It was directed by Robert Norman Reiner and runs at just over 2 hours. The picture received mixed reviews from critics and moviegoers upon release, though the flick seems to have found an audience of fans over the years. The feature tells the story of a civil rights activist who was murdered by a white supremacist. Ghosts of Mississippi delves deeply into racial and political issues, with some topics that feel very relevant and significant to our time. With captivating performances from the cast, the production was nominated and won several awards. The movie is actually based on the 1994 real-life arrest and trial of Byron Della Beckwith, who was eventually convicted of killing activist Medgar Evers. In reality, it took 2 trials to eventually find Beckwith guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison. If you like courtroom dramas, you won't want to miss this. Number 6. Dangerous Minds. Dangerous Minds was released in 1995 and it starred Michelle Pfeiffer and George Zunzer. Directed by John N. Smith, a Canadian screenwriter, it runs at 99 minutes and eventually spawned a TV spin-off series, which didn't last very long. Dangerous Minds was met with mixed reviews by audiences and critics upon release, and it was accused of stereotyping by some. The flick tells the story of a retired US Marine who applies for a teaching position at a school and is offered the role. Her life is changed when she meets those she is hired to teach, a class full of racially segregated students from poor backgrounds. Her life is turned upside down as she sees students turning to gangs and drug dealing, and she seeks to find a way to reach the class by various means. In truth, this production is based on the autobiography My Posse Don't Do Homework, written by US Marine Luann Johnson. The book details her experiences of teaching the class and the various things she dealt with and saw with the students. The film itself has been accused of being condescending and full of stereotypes, but the storyline and performance from the cast might make this one worth at least one watch. Number 5. The Silence of the Lambs. There aren't many film fans who won't have already seen the horror crime classic The Silence of the Lambs. This cult favourite starring Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster was directed by Jonathan Demme and based on a novel by Thomas Harris. The 118-minute movie was met with much applause upon release, with a 95% positive rating on review site Rotten Tomatoes. The story follows central character Clarice Starling, an FBI agent who is tasked with interviewing and studying cannibalistic killer Hannibal Lecter. She has to meet with him in prison where he is being held and requires to learn more about Lecter by convincing him to answer questions about himself. This is in order to put together a profile of a serial killer the FBI are looking for, known as Buffalo Bill. The film is beautifully cast and deeply disturbing. Although Silence of the Lambs is not based on one specific true-life case, the author of the book which the film was based upon used real-life serial killers as inspiration for the story. Hannibal himself is said to be based on a serial killer that Thomas Harris met in a prison in Mexico, and FBI agent Starling is based on real-life agent Patricia Kirby, whom author Harris met while researching the novel. Number 4. Goodfellas. Goodfellas is a 1990 autobiographical crime production which stars Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci, and Paul Sorvino. Directed by Martin Scorsese, one of the most significant names in film, the 146-minute gem is considered a classic by many movie buffs. The feature has an average rating of 9 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes and went on to win many awards. Goodfellas follows the life story of central character and mobster Henry Hill through the years of 1955 to 1980. Hill becomes deeply interested and then involved in the criminal underworld and the mafia as he works in Brooklyn. Henry begins associating with more dangerous figures in the underworld and gets involved with drugs. It's a dark and foreboding film. The true story of Goodfellas is actually based on the non-fiction book Wise Guy, written by crime reporter Nicholas Pileggi, about the mafia and the real-life Henry Hill. Released in 1985, it was the springboard for the motion picture, and the events described within were the foundation of the film. Number 3. The Ghosts and the Darkness. The Ghosts and the Darkness is a 1996 US historical adventure movie starring Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer. Directed by Stephen Hopkins, the 2-hour movie was met with mixed reviews upon release. Whilst many film fans liked the flick, actor Kilmer won a Razzie Award for Worst Supporting Actor. The Ghosts and the Darkness follows the story of 2 lions which were terrifying locals in Kenya after killing several men in the area. Colonel John Henry Peterson, staying in Tsavo, Kenya, to help complete the building of a railway, ends up hunting down the lions when they begin attacking workers. Think of this movie as Jaws, but for the lion world. The film itself is actually based on the book The Man-Eaters of Tsavo by John Henry Patterson, who in fact actually killed the lions himself in real life. Peterson claims the lions were responsible for 135 deaths, though many have contested this number and say the reality was probably closer to 30. Number 2. The Untold Story. The Untold Story is a crime thriller that was released in 1993, starring Danny Lee and Anthony Wong. Running at 95 minutes, the production was directed by Herman Yao and was controversial due to its graphic scenes of sex, violence, and gore. After its release, Wong won an award for Best Actor at the Hong Kong Movie Awards. The flick is a disturbing tale which follows on the heels of central character Wong Chi-hong. He owns a restaurant and police soon turn up on his doorsteps after a case of human remains appear to lead back to him and his premises. What follows Lorenzo's is a grisly tale of murder, missing people, and possible cannibalism. The film is certainly tense and horrific in equal measure. The untold story is actually based on the 8 Immortals restaurant murders of August 1985, in which the massacre of a family actually occurred. However, the hints of cannibalism have been chalked up to sensationalism, as there was never any proof of that side of things occurring. The movie has 2 sequels, but they are not related to the true crimes on which the first was based. Number 1. Lorenzo's Oil. Lorenzo's Oil is a 1992 drama which stars Nick Holt, Susan Sarandon, and Peter Ustinov. Directed and written by George Miller, the 2-hour film was met with high praise from critics and viewers alike, and was applauded for the way it dealt with deeply emotional and challenging issues. Lorenzo's Oil follows the parents of a young boy who has a condition called adrenoleukodystrophy, or ALD, which affects the brain. Desperate to cure their son of the degenerative disease, the couple soon find that due to how rare the condition is, there is very little help available. Soon they embark on a journey themselves in order to try to help their son to get treatment and to research the medical issues involved. The flick is a deeply moving affair, especially considering that it was based on the true story of Augusto and Michaela Adoni as they fought for a treatment for their son's ALD condition. The couple became well known after actually developing an oil that helped their child. Sadly, Lorenzo himself died shortly after his 30th birthday. And that concludes our list. If you think we missed any, then do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there. And I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.